del papel de los gases renovables en la futura matriz energética europea y también de la posición de los distintos países de nuestro entorno y de la Unión Europea, nos van a hablar ahora en la última mesa de la Reunión Anual de Sedigas los siguientes ponentes. La mesa lleva por título Gases renovables en Europa, presente y futuro. Y nos van a acompañar Torben, consejero delegado de ENERGINET Gas, Narcís de Carreras, presidente de GD4S, Gabriel Sousa, consejero delegado de GALP GND y José Simón, consejero delegado de PAVILION Energy. Va a moderar esta última mesa Nayara Ortiz de Mendívil, secretaria general de Sedigas. Muchísimas gracias a todos los participantes. A la moderadora ya podéis empezar.
Nos conocemos de vista. Ya.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias a todos por estar aquí, aguantar todo el día de ponencias. Y también os preguntaréis qué vamos a hablar ahora, ¿no? Después de que llevamos todo el día prácticamente hablando de gases renovables, de ESG, de sostenibilidad. Pues bueno, creo que la novedad de esta mesa es tener a dos ponentes también internacionales. Tenemos dos nacionales, dos internacionales, que espero que estén conectados. Y bueno, yo las presentaciones ya las ha hecho también Marta, están aquí ya con nosotros, Torben y Gabriel, bienvenidos. Y bueno, también va a cambiar el idioma porque tenemos a Gabriel, que es de Portugal y nos entiende todo perfectamente y él habla portuñol, pero tenemos a Torben, que es de Dinamarca y bueno, lógicamente pues prefiere que lo hagamos en inglés, ¿vale? Entonces, I'm going to change now the language, as I mentioned. We will speak in English now. And I don't want to spend so much time for the presentations. You know Narcís de Carreras, the CEO for NEDGIA, and also the president of GD4S. We have José Simón from PAVILION Energy Spain. We have Gabriel from Portugal and Torben from Denmark. Okay? So we will start the debate. I think the important thing now is like to listen the experts. And I will want to start with the Repower Europe. We have a trilemma now in Europe regarding the Repower Europe, the security of supply, all the goals, the objectives that we have for renewable gases. And I will want to know the perspective that you have regarding the Repower and the sector, of gas sector. I will give the floor, in this case the screen, to Torben, and I would like to know your views about that, Torben.
Yes, thank you to Sedigas for inviting me. I'm really proud to be here. I work a lot with Spain and the Spanish companies, particularly Enegas. Only 2 weeks ago, I participated in the Madrid Forum, so it's good to be here. The trilemma, was it that question or the repower? Sorry.
We have some problems. Torben, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now yeah.
Fine, okay, so for sure. So we work in Denmark both for security of supply and markets and decarbonization. And I think both for electricity and gas, we have shown that over the last 10, 20 years that we can actually improve all of them together. So in the law on ENERGINET, it's stipulated that we should, let's say, optimize, balance the trilemma. And our experience show that we can actually do it. I must admit that it's becoming more and more difficult right now. So for me, there's no contradiction in what we are doing between the trilemma parts. We can do all of them. For me, it's the Repower EU will, let's say, assist the European Union towards the aggression away from Russian gas, but we will at the same time see an acceleration of the decarbonization for biomethane and also for hydrogen. If there is a concern, it's the affordability. You know, new technologies, they need to mature, they need to have unit costs coming down. It takes subsidies, and we also need to accept that we need subsidies for new technologies for many years to come. It has been for wind, then solar panels, now it's for biomethane and hydrogen. So for me, subsidies is a given. Also for biogas, which is one of the green gases. And I can tell you today we have on annual basis 27% of biomethane in the Danish gas consumption. So that's fairly high. Thank you.
Thank you, Torben. Now I want to know the point of view from Narcís. Narcís, if you can.
Thank you, Nayara, and thank you to Sedigas for the invitation to participate in this panel. I think regarding your question, I don't believe there is any contradiction regarding the energy trilemma. In fact, I believe the energy trilemma is back in full force, no? Due to the current situation. It's better sometimes to make a step back, no? And to analyze what have been the characteristics, the main characteristics of the energy policy we've been living in these last, 10, 15 years. And we all know the climate objectives, no? And the Green Deal and the Fit for 55, etc. But another three characteristics I would like to highlight. We have forgotten about security of supply. And not only in terms of security of supply in availability, but also in terms of reliability. And this touches a lot our business, which is gas networks. No? Second, we have forgotten about affordability. We had, I think, in Europe, a very naive and romantic view of an unlimited energy sources based mainly on wind and solar. And we thought this was going to be enough. And the third characteristic was we were always talking about 2050. That world in which we've been living for the last 10, 15 years, it's over. It's absolutely over. And now we are in a world of energy realism, common sense, and economics. So security of supply is top of the agenda. Affordability is top of the agenda. And 2050 has been substituted by next winter. And this is very important. In this context, REPowerEU, it's the first step in this new energy policy that it's coming. We like REPowerEU. It has a focus on short term, and it tells us exactly what we have to do. There are concrete objectives, no? And the math needs to add up. Otherwise, it doesn't count. No? For us, as gas networks operators, we are, again, I would say, in the front line of this energy policy. Why? Because, first of all, we own networks, more than 1 million kilometers of networks that reach more than 100 final customers throughout Europe, in every corner of Europe. These customers that are families, businesses, and industries need to be decarbonized. And we are going to be one of the ways through which these final customers are going to be decarbonized. And second, key to decarbonizing through biomethane, our networks are going to be key because we are the networks where the biomethane will be injected.
Thank you, Narcís. Now I want to give the floor to Gabriel. You can add something else from REPowerEU, that trilemma and security of supply and everything, how you see that? No, we cannot hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it? Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Nayara, and thank you, Sedigas. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yes, I'd like to add, I think that what we have seen in the last years is, very demanding for all the society. We have been 2 years ago impacted by the COVID situation, where the companies, the energy sector, I would say all the society has been approaching this challenge and demanding flexibility, how to change behaviors, how to change the companies, the ways the company work, flexibility. And of course, now after these 2 years of the COVID situation, we are going through this terrible situation that, as my previous colleagues already mentioned, might be giving some speed up, some acceleration for some of the measures that were previously identified. And one of the relevant topics is that how this speed up can be developed with the affordability and with the achieving the goals that were previously defined and to achieve the emission reductions. Well, I think that one of the issues, as we have seen also through the COVID, and what we see on the Repower EU addresses different topics. It addresses the increase of renewables, and on that topic, I would like to say, as Narcís already mentioned, that the gas sector and the gas DSOs has been precisely working to accelerate and to show that the gas networks and the gas distribution networks, they are ready to receive renewable gas. They are ready to receive biomethane, and they are speeding up the process to also be able to receive hydrogen. But also one of the topics that I think is really relevant on this balance between emission targets and the energy sector is also on the demand side. So the way the consumers, the way the customers behave, the options that are made by the market, also in order to have some energy savings, some efficiency, that will also play a very relevant role in decreasing the dependency from the Russian gas or from any of other source. But I would reinforce, I think that there are positive signs that we see on the Repower EU. So this ambition to increase the renewable gas and the renewable utilization. I think it's important that we tackle the speed that we will do it, and already, as mentioned in this panel, how to make it in an affordable way and with the proper incentives, because as mentioned, electrons, it's quite clear for everyone that electrons can be renewable, they are renewable, but molecules can also be renewable, and they are also renewable. Now it's time to increase the incentives and also the support to have renewable gases in our network to provide decarbonization on the society.
Thank you, Gabriel. I totally agree with you. And now we are going to look from José Simón, from the point of view of the consumers, like traders and shippers. And how do you think about that?
Gracias, Nayara. Y lo primero, enhorabuena al equipo por lo bien que habéis organizado el evento. Let me switch to English. First of all, I think that I was meaning to be provocative because I was thinking about starting my speech about saying, well, trilemma, which trilemma? Trilemma ceased to exist for the last 5-10 years. But well, Narcís definitely has already explained it further. Yeah. The reality, it is that we have been sitting on a unreal concept that energy was abundant, cheap, infinite gas coming from our friends in Russia. Northwest European countries, at any moment in time, they decided just to say, well, they are extremely reliable, they are very much market-oriented, so we shouldn't be worried about the gas and the energy supply eventually. So this all started to blow out, not since last February. 1 year ago, the Russians started to send clear indications about how they were going to manage the gas supply to their partners countries in the coming years. So this reality now has ended up in all of us wondering, well, security of supply is again on the table. Affordability is again on the table. It's not only about environmental issues, it's also these other two topics of the trilemma. Security of supply, definitely, it is in somehow, for example, to the topic that we are now discussing about renewable gases, it is helping, it is supporting the deployment of a new wave of renewable gases, because at the end of the day, it's indigenous production, it's under our control, it's not coming from different sources, different countries, and no matter how close they are. Second, affordability. Well, let me be a bit skeptical about affordability in terms of renewable gases by themselves. So the current market prices, which is at 100 euros per megawatt hour and so on, well, if we look back only 1 year ago, we were at around these dates at 20. So I don't know for how long these prices are going to stay here. But definitely, so we cannot think about promoting renewable gas projects and say, well, the market is going to be paying it easily because, you know, they ruin the margins and so on. So this is not going to run for at least 10 years, which is more or less with the useful life that we should be meaning or intending for promoting one of these projects. And pretty much that's the thing. We are in a quite positive mood right now when we speak about renewable gases. Definitely, the momentum is now. I think that somehow in Spain we have been missing window opportunity for 1 year, 2 years, but I think that finally there is the support. So let's go for it.
Perfect. That's perfect for me. So we will continue with the repower, but now we are going to focus more on the infrastructure point of view because it's also needed for security of supply. So I will change the order. And I will start with Narcís now. What do you think, how the infrastructure that we have in Spain are useful, and in Europe, how we can do that for Repower EU?
I mean, the objective of Repower is at the end, the main objective is to replace 150 BCMs of Russian gas. No? And this is clearly going to be very complicated, no? In the short term. No? At the end, in order to put this figure, 150 BCMs in context, this represents 5 times the annual gas consumption in Spain. So it's a lot of gas. No? As network operators, and regarding this objective, I think we can position a couple of real, operative, and practical initiatives that actually a couple of weeks ago, when with GD Forest we were in Brussels meeting with Kadri Simpson, we presented these initiatives to her. First of all, biomethane acceleration, even beyond 35 BCMs, which is the actual objective that the REPowerEU Act has defined. As DSOs, we are very excited about this renewable gas opportunity. It's the opportunity to decarbonize our gas grids and to decarbonize, obviously, natural gas consumption. It's also a very powerful message to our consumers. What we are telling to them through our objectives in biomethane is you can decarbonize part of your energy consumption without extra costs because you already have the infrastructure. No? Some numbers, biomethane in the current pledge, in the current objective that REPowerEU has, would represent, if we get there before 2030, substituting 20% of the Russian gas, no? And globally, 10% of the gas demand the natural gas demands in Europe. We know it can be done. Actually, some countries are doing. Your country, Torben, is doing it. More than 25% of gas demand in Denmark is sourced from biomethane. France is connecting 3 plants a week. So it can be done. No? So this is a first initiative that it's clearly that we need to clearly focus, and DSOs in this ambition are key. Second, conservation and efficiency. We need to conserve and be much more efficient in terms of gas consumption. And there, a couple of initiatives. One very practical and very short term, a program of boilers replacement. If we substitute boilers, old boilers, more than 10 years old, with new boilers, we can conserve, we can be much more efficient, like 20–30% of the gas consumption. And mid-term, obviously, and this has been declared also this morning, an aggressive deployment of digital meters. Without digital meters, there is no biomethane, there is no renewable gases opportunity that can be deployed.
Thank you, Narcís. You were talking more long term, but as well at the end, like short term, I would like to do the same question to Gabriel, but maybe you can talk about next winter.
Yeah, well, I think the challenge for the next winter, biomethane is something that comes at an urgent pace, and as Narcís mentioned, it's, well, maybe in the countries that have some delay, and like Portugal is one of those, it cannot be ready for next winter, but it's something that we should speed up. Because as mentioned, there are several examples in Europe where biomethane has a huge amount of injection on the network, which is not the case, at least in Portugal, I think also in Spain, with some margin for improvement. And I see also this opportunity, this contest of the REPowerEU to take the chance to do now a step, to step into this development, because there is a huge potential of decarbonize the networks with the biomethane injection. Sharing with you, well, in Portugal, there has been a main focus on the hydrogen development, also related with the amazing projects that have been developed on the solar photovoltaic generation, which also allows for an amazing cost of electricity, which has a relevant contribution to have an ambition for the development of hydrogen. So we have already from a few years ago a quite clear hydrogen strategy. And in the case of our activity on the network, gas network, we have been focusing on the hydrogen injection on the network. This is the reason why we developed. We are almost near to begin. In fact, we already began the injection in one polyethylene network where we are using 100% of hydrogen from the producer to the blending station. And in the following weeks, we will begin injecting 2% of hydrogen for a pilot project with 80 customers, but it's a very relevant project to begin a first step, and then of course to have the development for a huge amount, a larger amount of customers and communities. But we have precisely this huge opportunity to develop the biomethane that we have seen in so many countries, and we need to approach it in Portugal. Let me also share with you, I think that we have, and I would say it might be similar to several regions of Spain, we have not only the natural resources providing a good support for the decarbonization, like the sun, the wind, but we have also a new network. So the main part of the distribution network is built with polyethylene. In our case, 95% of the network is built with polyethylene, which brings a very good context to receive renewable gas, namely hydrogen. So when we discuss all these developments, the affordability and also tackling the issue of stranded assets, we need to take into account that there is a very relevant asset that is new, available, and that should be considered in the way of decarbonization with injection on this asset.
Thank you, Gabriel. So now to José, as you don't have infrastructure, I will ask.
No. I'm the only one here that is not operating or owning infrastructure.
I'm going to make the question. What do you think about blending?
No, and definitely, I think that we are in a quite privileged position because for development, the production facilities for biomethane and even for hydrogen, most of the network is there, so it is contributing to the affordability of this activity. But also let me be the grumpy on stage, because every single time that we are combining affordability, security of supply, and that we let aside the affordability, and we end up in overinvestment. And at the end of the day, I'm as a trader, consumer, whatever I am, I end up scared of paying for it, So we have to be sensible in how we manage the need and also how we upgrade the network when it's required.
Thank you, José. So now from the point of view of Torben, about his more regarding transmission, what do you think about the infrastructure of transmission infrastructure in Europe?
Yes, sure. So let me take some views from our gas infrastructure Europe and ENSAC, where we have assessed how REPowerEU should, let's say, be lived out. So for sure, we have LNG. We see a lot of, let's say, LNG projects coming on. Many FSRUs in northern and, let's say, and northeast and southeast Europe. We don't expect that we can reach the 50 billion, probably 25, 30 billion euros, a billion cubic meters. ENSTAC have prepared this summer supply outlook where they show how LNG can come in and go into storages, how we can increase imports from Africa and Norway, but they also conclude that there are bottlenecks in the system, in the transmission system. As you know, between Spain and France and Germany we have this authorization, but also in other countries. So we see infrastructure investments going on right now in Central Europe and Germany to receiving LNG and to remove bottlenecks. And for those, it's good that they have, let's say, fast tracking permitting there. Storages is also really essential because they're the ones, let's say, going to save all of Europe and particularly in Eastern Europe. If I go to Denmark, two examples there. One is the Baltic Pipe. We are, let's say, constructing the Baltic Pipe with the Polish counterparts. It opens up 1st of October. And by the end of the year, we have a 10 BCM new pipeline on stream there with new volumes from Norway, not all of them, but also, let's say, some redispatching from Germany and Netherlands directly into Poland. And a final comment could also be that we use a lot of time, let's say, in the mid-term, longer term, let's say, in network planning. We are gas and power TSO, so we use a lot of, let's say, joint planning scenarios, models, as we see in Netherlands, probably also in Spain, and I know it from Italy also. And many of the future options lies between the systems, not in gas alone, not in electricity alone, not in heating sector alone, but between. So it's a really good idea to use the network planning, let's say, as a working tool between transmission, distribution, between natural gas and hydrogen. So we learn more about the opportunities, because some of the problems we have seen in Denmark on green electricity and on biogas is that there were some front runners and then suddenly everyone else was, let's say, behind, and then the development stopped. So it's also about having everyone moving in the same time speed, let's say, to have an optimal renewable, let's say, future. Thank you.
Thank you, Torben. So now we have been talking about infrastructure. I would like now to focus on the objectives from the Repower about biomethane and hydrogen. We have already the objectives like European level, like 35 BCM for biomethane and 10, 22 million tons for hydrogen. And I would like to ask Gabriel, what do you think about the objectives? Is they okay? And how do you see we can get that as European level?
Of course, as I mentioned previously, it's quite an ambition. The timeline can make some burdensome steps that should be taken to approach this development. Nevertheless, I think that what we need as a context is precisely to have an integrated approach. And I think that, as mentioned by Torben Bravo, we need to approach the development of the gas sector. And for that case, it's important the way the EU approaches the gas market design. Some of the regulations that will be published and considered for the next period, because it can contribute for a better development, or it can be a constraint. So when we look to the regulation, to the legislation, it can contribute for this development, or it can build a constraint. Having a gas DSO entity at an European level is a very important step to harmonize some of the developments, to have interconnections, also considering the renewable gas transmission. So I think these are some of the steps that when we look to the Repower EU, I think that we have a lot of information about the what is the ambition, but not completely clear yet on the how to do it, how to achieve it, with some of the measures that need to be taken, that need to be considered to allow precisely for the developments and for the improvements that we need to make. So regulation, legislation, and this gas market design definition, with also the gas DSO entities being so relevant to harmonize. As you know, one of the projects that is going on, the Ready for Hydrogen, assessing the huge amount of DSOs, more than 90 DSOs in Europe, working together to be prepared for the hydrogen injection. But then we need to get from this joint effort from all the companies to something that finds a framework on the regulation and on the legislation to develop the following steps.
Thank you, Gabriel. Any other ideas, José?
Well, I think, first of all, that the 35 BCM is something as a target challenging, but well, we must be engaged and work for it. Having said that, from the regulators and government's point of view, how they can help definitely is, for example, implementing a clear regime at the Spanish level for the garantías de origen, for the GDOs, because I sometimes have a doubt, which is, well, how can you leverage one product that you are making of, which is the garantías de origen, when there is no need in your market for it? So the value is zero. So it is provoking that we as commercializators or traders, we are using these garantías de origen in some markets far away from here just to monetize the output. So this is something that I think we really our government, our regulators should be hands-on from now. And also, for example, looking for those uses or those activities in which biomethane has a natural outbound, which is, for example, for transport, for heavy transport trucks, also for bunkering, for marine. So there is a clear natural way just for implementing additional measures and helping to give additional support to it.
Yeah, we will talk later about national level, but yeah, I agree with that. What about you, Torben? Are you there? Yeah.
Yes, sure. So in my view, we should have, let's say, a new regulatory framework very fast, because many entities, including many TSO and distribution system operators, we actually don't know what we can do, what we're allowed to do. And that, let's say, increases uncertainty, risk for all the new value chains and for all the investments. We should have a simple regulation, a simple regulatory framework. We don't need to have all the details, which is in the electricity and gas, natural gas regulation, but for sure we could do some copy and paste there. For Denmark, I see, let's say, I will come with 3 examples. So we will have large-scale development of offshore wind going into from offshore into onshore, and then electrolyzers making hydrogen. And then we will have a backbone development there as being presented as part of the European hydrogen backbone with exports for Germany and Netherlands. So that's large scale. In Denmark, we don't have hydrogen consumption today, so it will go mainly into new uses for transport, for aviation, for shipping, e-methanol or ammonia. Some of the biggest players in Denmark, Ørsted and Maersk Shipping, they are there. In the other end, we will have, let's say, also hydrogen in small scale from onshore wind. It will go into, let's say, clusters, local industries. So the regulation also needs to provide solutions both for large scale exporting market design, and at the same time small scale local circular economies. And then we have biomethane in Denmark, at least somewhere in between. We have now biomethane coming from a very local small scale, growing, and now we have so much biomethane that we can take it, let's say, from the distribution system and into the transmission. We have now 3 compressors where we can, let's say, recompress to transmission. After the war, we have replanted. Now it seems that we need 5 or 6 more because we are pushing for more biomethane. 2 small comments. Guarantees of origin is for sure also one of our key ways to the future planning. As I mentioned before, that's one. Guarantees of origin is another. So we need to make sure what is renewable, what is low carbon, what is grey, both from electricity, electrolyzers, hydrogen into storage, out of storage, make ammonia, e-methanol, and then how much, let's say, carbon dioxide is used, which is green, biogene, etc. So you can follow how green the product is, because that's actually where the value is, and then the final sentence is, we need the industries, the end users. In Denmark, they have been the one driving the need for biomethane because they wanted to convert natural gas into green gases. So a push there is also, let's say, relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Torben. I don't know, Narcís, you have any other ideas for the mechanism?
Just to complement, I think the ambition has been set. It's always important to mention that, I mean, the ambition of biomethane, the amounts of production that you have said are clear, but it's very important to repeat that this is only part of the story. The other part of the story is the gas networks, because as far as I know, hydrogen and biomethane are gases, and gases go through pipes. So pipes are important, no? Pipelines and our gas networks are important. We have been, as gas operators, building and operating and maintaining what is, I believe, right now a treasure for security of supply, and what will be a treasure for attaining these renewable gases objectives in the future. So what Torben and Gabriel said about the need for regulation and the need for network planning between TSOs, DSOs, this is going to be key, and nothing is written. So the priority for these next few weeks/months is going to be this one, if we want to reach 2030 with this objective. No? Back to what needs to be done. I think some simple things can be detailed at the European level. No? First of all, legally binding targets at national level. The objective is 35 BCMs, but we need to detail what every country can provide in order to reach this European objective. So member state legally binding objectives. Simplify permitting. We need to strongly simplify the permitting. At the end, we have to remember that biomethane and renewable gases in general projects are local projects, and that local authorities are not prepared, at least in my country, to manage the permitting of such a complex projects. No? Injection incentives, so this is regulation, and allow for connection costs to be part of the asset-based network operators to be remunerated with a long-term vision. No? So this could be 3 or 4 ideas that to open discussion with the regulator in each country.
Okay, thank you, Narcís. Now, continue with that, but now for national level, I would like to ask José what we can do or what we have to do in Spain. We have some new regulation like the roadmap for biogas, and we have the transposition of the Royal Decree about guarantees of origin, but I think that we need much more, and I will just ask what we have to do in Spain and what we need for the explosion of the biomethane and renewable gases.
Yeah, as I briefly explained in the beginning of the session, I think that the timing right now is really in our favor for promoting renewable gases in Spain. Also, we must admit that the regulator, the government, the policymakers so far have not been, let's say, very proactive. For them, it has not been a priority, let's put it clear. Sometimes they have been quite ambiguous because maybe they were paying more attention to other things that can be together, so they are not excluding each other. So I think that right now, because of the global circumstances that we are sailing through, so right now we are in a quite interesting moment for them just to push for it. How to push it? Well, I think at least with the Real Decreto that have been recently published, they are giving a clear indication that this time they are going for it. As I mentioned before, the garantías de origen is essential, so it's a must. So it is ridiculous that we are exporting this virtual credit to markets that are paying for that, and why Spain is not very, is just simply by introducing a system of obligations, allowances, creating the need. It would be from one day to the other, creating the product. So we would be in a much more meaningful situation in terms of how to market the product, because it's a product at the end of the day. And this is pretty much. So, for example, when this morning there were this number of 200 projects that were ready to be launched and so on, come on. So we have been waiting 2 years, and now we have 200 of them. Okay, let's go for it. But now we might be facing some bottleneck. So the permitting issues now is something, again, that could be this bottleneck. So I think it is time, in the same way that, for example, in Germany for the setup of these, the settlement of these regasification terminals, they have said, well, these are the nominal procedures and so on, but because of this urgent situation, we are going to be to put some relax in terms of how to measure it or to apply it. I think that in Spain we should be doing the same in terms of, or at least helping the promoters to do it, helping to do it.
Okay, thank you, Jose. I think Torben can, you know, the problems in Spain, and you are much more hurry on that with renewable gases biomethane in Denmark. You can tell us, give us some solutions for that, how we can improve that, and also what are you going to do in your country that I know that it's very, you are continuing to increasing the percentage of renewable gases in the natural gas network.
Sure. But I can tell you we are in the same boat. So even if we're long distance, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, the discussion here is similar to the discussion we have on many topics. So we could reach 100% renewable gases in 2035 or some years before, depending on, let's say, how our government, let's say, will continue the subsidies. I think it's really important that the member states accept that they need to change a lot. Many legislative acts need to be changed in parallel to push for biomethane or hydrogen. It's not only about energy, it's about climate, it's about agriculture, it's about transport, it's about licensing and so on. And as I said before, they need to do it, let's say, in parallel. And they could start on everything now. So even though that we don't have that many projects, we could also start in how we will use the biomethane, how we can, let's say, use the guarantees of origin, let's say, in transport or, let's say, in other sectors. It's also really important, let's say, on permitting to have standardized plans. Many of the Danish plans, they are similar, so they have easier permitting time uses in the authorities. The subsidies, it's a good idea. You can either choose to subsidize the construction, the supplier, or at the consumption side. It's a good idea to have the same scheme in your neighboring country as your neighboring countries. Otherwise, you get subsidies for producing in one and consuming in another, and then you will lose, let's say, the green value. Guarantees of origin is really key. We have clear DSO connection rules. So if a biomethane plant wants to develop, they know how and what to do to be connected to the distribution network. It's standardized. It's the DSO together with the TSO who decides where you are connected. And then if it's, let's say, a longer pipeline from your plant to the distribution network, then we will pay the difference. But it could be easier for us to take the biomethane in a different place than where the location of the biomethane producer is. And then for sure, stepwise approach, learn, reshape the design. We are now on subsidy scheme 3. It was very expensive, then it became more efficient, then we reduced the subsidies and so on. And then a final sentence is that here in Denmark, we have had a really stable political support for green gases and green electrons for 30, 40 years. So since the oil prices, all of the parliament wanted to do the same thing. So we have a very stable political climate, and in many aspects that has been key for what we are doing. I don't know how it is in Spain. I remember participating in FUNSIAM, let's say some workshops earlier, some years ago. I don't think you have it as stable as we have, but that is really key. Thank you.
Thank you, Torben. I don't know, Narcís, you have any other point from Spain country listening to Torben as well?
I think we need to I mean, the Energy Secretary of State this morning told us that we are going to be upgrading the PNIEC, no? So we need to recognize renewable gases within the PNIEC. Right now, they are not part of the priorities, no? And in general terms, we must probably reread some of the current legislation, like, for example, I don't know, the hydrocarbons law, when it was written a few years ago, it doesn't mention renewable gases, no? So we are going to need to upgrade and to reread a lot of the legislation. Another thing that I think is very important is to see this, to see the whole value chain of renewable gases. This is not an energy sector-centric opportunity. It involves other actors, and we need to make this attractive to these other actors. No? We're going to have waste producers, water treatment producers, obviously all the agriculture and the food-producing clusters that are key to biomethane and renewable gases in general. And also we need to acknowledge the need to involve and to educate the local governments, which are key to the permitting. We really need to create a new global framework to incentivize the participation of all these new players and obviously to show them what are the returns of their investments.
Thank you, Narcís. So we have just 5 minutes. We have here the closure already from the regulators, so I just wanted to ask like a titular, like one phrase that you will say for repower or national level or whatever you want. I will start with Torben.
Yeah, so for me it's about, let's say, working together with others. We should, let's say, not only focus on our own sector, we should, let's say, collaborate, TSO, DSO, electricity and gas. So that could be, let's say, a say for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Torben. Narcís?
Common sense, economics, data, rigor, and also taking into account that if we want to talk and to develop renewable gases, gas networks are going to be key for this success.
Thank you, Narcís. What about Gabriel?
Well, I just like to add that, as I mentioned, gases can be renewables, molecules can be renewables the same way electrons are renewables. And the interconnection between, as Torben mentioned, TSO, DSO, and integration sectors, and this can provide a way to have flexibility and security of supply, so that we don't change from a dependency from Russian gas to another kind of dependency on full electrification. So the renewable gases can also bring this flexibility and security of supply to the system.
Thank you, Gabriel. So last but not least, what about José?
Well, this a combination of different players, and the last one is the market. So right now, market is helping, is supportive, giving good signals, but I don't know if it's going to be for 10 years, 15 years. So the market is going to have a final say on whether it was or not a good project or a bad project.
Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody, all the speakers, and I will finish like Juntos por el Equilibrio with the hashtag, and we will wait for the closure now.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.